I welcome you to lesson 5 of unit 2, which is performance appraisal and margins. Hope you are enjoying this course, and we are on lesson 5 of unit 2. The learning outcomes for this lesson on performance appraisal and margins are why we measure the performance of the sales force, what are the different appraisal techniques, and when we talk about the parameters for the appraisal, there is one term which we call as key result areas. So what are those? And lastly, we'll discuss about profits and margins, both at the distributor level as well as overall for the company. Let us start with the sales force performance. Question is why we need performance appraisal of the sales force. Obviously, we want to drive sales, and in order to drive sales to achieve the sales growth, we need to look at the performance so that we can make our sales force more effective. We need to know whether the sales rep is meeting the objectives, and if they are not, how we can make them effective and meet the objectives. So what are the various appraisal techniques which we are going to discuss? We'll be throwing light on 5 different techniques. Now the parameters are very important for the sales force depending on the product line, the company and the market and the growth. So like ability to spot opportunities when you are going in a new market with a new product. We generally try to look at 3 things. We focus on performance and effectiveness, and generally we refrain from using a top-down approach, as we discussed in the last lesson, that when we are setting the target, we just don't want to impose the sales number onto the field sales force. And the third is that we use analytics and benchmarking to create the sales plans. Now when we talk about the first technique of appraisal, which is management by objectives, so we try to quantify everything. So at the beginning of the sales cycle, both the sales rep and the sales manager, they sit and they try to set certain objectives which are quantitative in nature, and then we measure the performance at the end of the cycle, maybe at the end of the quarter or twice a quarter, depending on how you do it. But generally it is a continuous process. For example, you can set an objective which is quantitative, increase sales by 30%. So that is when we say management by objectives, that is the appraisal technique. The second is the ranking method. In the ranking method, what we do is, based on certain parameters, we try to rank all the sales reps of the sales force. Once we rank them, then we make 3 groups. We put in the first group, which comprises of around 10%, who are not doing very well. So on the left hand side, you see that these are the people who have been coached and maybe they have to be replaced by the new sales force. Then around 70% of the people, they fall in the middle one, where they are performing okay, but they need more training and they are to be coached more Here, the sales which is coming from the compensation is 2 to 3 times. And the last, if you remember the sales learning curve, we put in the top 20 who are doing exceptionally well, and they are bringing sales of around 5 times more of the compensation which they are getting. So generally, the ranking method follows normally a bell curve. So that is the normal distribution. Then the third method is the essay method, where the sales manager writes essay type report based on certain parameters for each Salesforce rep in terms of that parameter or parameters, what are their strengths and weaknesses, so what sort of traits they possess, and then based on that they give a weightage to each parameter, and then they assign a score to that. So it is like an essay method where they elaborate on each parameter about their strengths and weaknesses. There are a lot of advantages because it is a detailed one and you have to know your rep really well to write essay appraisal. On the other side, this is biased sometimes because one person is appraising and there are some personal biases which come in the way. The next one, in order to remove those biases, personal biases, there is 360 review feedback. Generally, this is done by all the people the sales rep is interacting with, whether these are your co-workers or peers, the top management, the customers, the vendors. So you get a 360-degree feedback, and based on that, and again the parameters are important. So based on that, you do the appraisals. The last one is the rating scales. Like you pick the right parameters for the company, for your sales rep, and then you rate them as from 1 to 5. 5 is maybe exceptional and 1 is unsatisfactory. To pick the parameters relating to their behavior, traits, competences, or the projects which they have completed, or their past performance, or the net profit they bring from their territory. Now, parameters are very important. So, some of the parameters are qualitative in nature, and some of the parameters are quantitative. Generally, for analytics point of view, you have to have the quantitative parameters. So there are certain qualitative techniques which are generally used by the companies for the performance appraisals. Like here we have listed around 12 qualitative parameters which are under 4 heads. 4 heads are personal characteristics, knowledge, skill, and self-management. For example, in personal characteristics, about their attitude, initiative, taking capability, creativity, innovativeness, aggressiveness. Under the knowledge, product knowledge, market knowledge, and company strategy, policy knowledge. In terms of the skills, selling skill and communication skill. When we talk about the self-management, parameters could be planning ability, judgment or decision-making ability, and time management. So by using these different parameters, you can have a 5-point rating from 1 to 5 as we discussed in the last slide. And then you put excellent, very good, average or poor, so depending on the rating you pick. The quantitative criteria for sales performance, we call them as key result areas or key performance indicators. So generally for the Salesforce, we use these 12 KRAs: sales approaches to appointments, appointments to proposals, inquiries proposals to sales, orders to sales calls, which we call as strike rate, sales revenue per order, so sales per hour of selling time, sales cost of sales, gross profit, call rate per account, new accounts to existing accounts, which we call as rate of business development, that is their penetration, new customers to new prospects, and sales to market potential. Let's talk about margin and profitability. In order to understand the distributor margin in general, let us try to understand what is bottom line margin and what is gross profit margin. For any company, you know the revenue and the expenses or the cost. So then you arrive at the net income, which we call as the net profit. So the first term is the bottom line margin, or what we call as the net profit margin, which is nothing but net profit divided by the revenue. Out of the total revenue that you have generated, how much is the net profit? That gives you an idea of the net profit margin. If we talk of gross profit margin, you take gross profit divided by revenue. Now let us take one example to understand this. Now there are two businesses, one is business A and one is business B. In case of business A, the annual revenue is 10 million, which is 1 crore. The net profit is 100,000, which is 1 lakh. For business B, the revenue is 500,000, which is 5 lakhs, and the net profit is 50,000. So if I want to calculate the net profit margin, so it is 1 lakh divided by 1 crore, 100,000 divided by 10 million, which gives me 1% net profit margin. If I talk of business B, it is 50,000 divided by 500,000, which is 10% net profit margin. My question is, which business is better, A or B? So now we need to understand what does better means here. Is it the net profit margin, which very clearly indicates that the business B is good, but the revenue is only 5 lakhs or 500,000, whereas for business A the revenue is 1 crore or 10 million. Now as per you, which is better? Now some of the companies, they say we don't want to be in low profit margin business, whereas some companies say that's okay with us if we have low profit margin, but as long as the revenue is high, we are okay with that. Why they do that? Because they want to retain the market share, because high revenue means they have bigger market share. The competitors cannot take it away from them. When we talk about the distributor or the retailer margin, if I calculate retailer, same way you can calculate for distributor margin. Let us take one example. The brand is Ola and they are selling bottle of oil. Now, when we talk about retail margin or retailer margin, that means it is the gross margin or gross profit which is the percentage of retail price at which the product is sold. Let us take one example. For example, Ola sells to the retailer for $3 and retailer sells to the consumer for $5. You think the gross margin is $2, but that is not the case. The retailer pays around 16%, for example, on different taxes like the sales tax, GST, VAT to the government. Now there is only one, which is the GST in India. Now if we want to take away this tax component, so what we do is that $5 for which the retailer is selling to the consumer divided by 1 plus 16%, which is the tax. So this gives me a figure of 4.31. Now, in order to calculate the gross margin, so 4.31 is the price after tax minus, let us say the cost to the retailer is $3. This cost is about for operations and for selling and any other charges which they are taking. So it is $3. So it comes out to be the retailer gross margin is 4.31 minus the cost. So if I want to calculate in terms of percentage, 1.31 divided by 4.31, you get 30%. So 30% is the retailer margin. There is another term which is known as retailer markup. Retailer markup is calculated on the cost of the retailer. So 1.31 was the retailer gross margin divided by the cost to the retailer, which is 3. So that is coming out to be 44%. That is the retailer markup. So that is all for this lesson. Let me summarize. We looked at why we go for appraisals, what are the different types of appraisal techniques. Then we talked about key result areas or KPIs, key performance indicators for Salesforce performance. We discussed about margins, and then we took one example to understand the retailer or the supplier gross margin. Here is a small quiz for you. Question number 1. Why some companies go for lower margins but higher revenues? In retailer markup formula, if you remember the retailer markup formula, what comes in the denominator? The third question, which technique of appraisal generally follows a bell curve? Please check the answers. First one, companies go for lower margins but higher revenues to keep their market share. Retailer markup formula, what comes in the denominator? It is the retailer cost. Which technique of appraisal follows a bell curve? It is a ranking method. If you have any questions, feel free to write to me at my email address given below. This is for further reading. This is a good article on what we are appraising, which part of performance. It's a wonderful article, and if you want to read, you can go to this link. Thank you very much. See you next time with the next lesson. Bye for now.